Hey, what's going on, folks? Welcome to another week's The Live Life Aggressively show. This is Sincere Hogan. Got Mike Marr on the line, as I do every week. It gets to the point where it's just like, I don't have to sit there and say that you're on the other line. I kind of hope that you are.
One day I shouldn't be on the line.
I know, it's going to really
throw people a curveball.
I know, it's like,
it's just me today.
So I got a cardboard cutout of Mike sitting over here, so there you go.
But yeah, we're going to start doing the show, but only with one of us at a time.
Exactly.
So, we're just going to trade off each week. Just to create some controversy. Those guys haven't fallen out. We haven't heard them on the show together.
Man, Mike and Sincere fighting, right?
It's like people share kids in a divorce. We're sharing the show. Okay, you get it this week, I get it next week.
We're co-parenting the show.
Hashtag you're up.
I get it for 2 weeks in July. That's how it works out here in Texas.
Well, we have a great guest today, and we're going to get to him in a second. But just real quick, some shout-outs to those of you that are using that coupon code LLA to get 10% off some great products and support the show. This week we have Tim Larkin, who's a good friend of ours, been on the show. And Sincere, you're actually coming out to take his course in Vegas next month. Yep. And then we have Jag Sumal out of the UK. We've got Anna Marie Rigg, David Danar, Calvin Davis, Carrie Knight, John Fleming, Lydia De La Torre, Kelly Campion, Mark Rothman, Chris Green, Chad Morita, and Randy Miller. They're all using that coupon code LLA to get 10% off all the products you see at MikeMahler.com, nutrition supplements, videos, T-shirts, you name it, and support the show. And those of you that had to do your taxes last week like me, you probably have some adrenal fatigue this week. Your cortisol surging. So get some red. Get on red. Get some rhodiola, ashwagandha, shilajit, and maca. It's all loaded up in there to rejuvenate your adrenals, make you just feel fantastic. And what's going on with you, man?
Say, man, I want to give a shout out to Prince Bell and Thomas Lloyd, who went over to newwarriortraining.com, used that same coupon code, got 10% off. Got their Chiriadors, getting ready to have their coffee and their tea, and I appreciate that, fellas. Good looking out with that. And you guys can do the same thing. Go over there, grab a Chiriador, get the Bositas if you need to re-up on those if you already have a Chiriador, as well as go ahead and sign up for the weight management program. The DVD's got all that good stuff over there. I got to use that coupon code, get 10% off. And also want to give a shout out to another VIP, Corbin Thomas, is what he's participating in what I'm calling now the Patreon bump. That's what I'm going to start calling this. That's when our monthly Patreon supporters go back in and actually increase their monthly donation to the LLA show for their Patreon support. So Corbin bumped his up. So yeah. So all you other folks out there, hey, go ahead and go to patreon.com/LLA podcast. Become a monthly supporter of the show. If you're already supporting the show monthly on Patreon, go ahead and do like Corbin and get that Patreon bump. Bump it up from $5 to $10 to $20. Hey, it's all on you, man. We'll take it.
And Prince, speaking of Prince Bell, he has a great Star Wars channel, and he's actually he's actually growing a brain and starting to monetize this. And he has a new lightsaber out that it's a fleshlight, but it looks like a lightsaber. so make sure to hit him up. Go to his Star Wars channel, ask him about it, blast him on Twitter, emails, just get an ETA on when that's coming out.
Man, I was wondering what he was talking about when he had that dark side edition. Okay. Oh man.
Fleshlight saber, I believe. Hashtag fleshlight saber.
Hey, you should be very careful because the porn industry loves to do spoofs of movies. So you should be careful when you say things like that, Mike. It's just a matter of time.
Get that trademark, Prince.
Right
before
now.
I do, and then sell it to you. All right, we have a great guest today. We have Andrew Marr, who's a former Special Forces Green Beret, and he's the founder of a fantastic organization that I'm very happy to support, which is the Warrior Angels Foundation. And we support it through the show. You notice it's in the show notes every week as one of our go-to organizations that we wholeheartedly support and trust. And it's an organization that's on a mission to stop the deaths of veterans suffering from PTSD caused by traumatic brain injuries. And this is something we talked to Dr. Mark Gordon about a few times when he's been on the show. He's very passionate about helping these people, and as is Andrew, who benefited from Mark's work and then founded an organization to help others. Andrew, how you doing today?
Awesome, Mike and Sincere. Thank you for having this on. And man, how about the fleshlight saber? That's crazy.
Well, we'll make sure he sends you a couple samples to try out.
No doubt.
Now that you're feeling so good using Dr. Mark Gordon's protocols and so forth, you can take full advantage of that.
Yeah, they call mine the extra large fleshlight saber.
He's getting the dark side version too.
So, hey, man, I'm curious how this whole thing came together for you. How did you meet up with Dr. Mark Gordon and begin this journey?
Like you said, I was a Green Beret for just under 9 years, and as a elite performer that entire time until one day I woke up after my last deployment and found myself on 13 different medications. I was alcoholic. My wife, who was her fifth child, she was 9 months pregnant. Her request of me for the day is if I couldn't drink so much in case she went into labor, so she didn't have to drive herself to the hospital. And at that point, it was a wake up, and the wake up was, hey, the treatment that I'm getting for traumatic brain injury is predicated on psychotherapy and medication.
Yeah.
And that's done nothing to improve my quality of life. As a matter of fact, it's only made things worse. And the reason, Mike, Sincere, is it did that is it didn't treat the underlying condition. So if you're just masking symptoms, as you guys well know, you're not getting to the root cause. You're just further exacerbating the problem. So, being that spiraled out of control, I started to go to the scientific literature, and, I was like, I'm going to figure this out for myself because there's got to be a different way, a better way. And we were able to go out and find some different things that were working, got out to Texas to a place that was specializing in neuro and biofeedback, and started to have a little bit of success there. And that drew some news coverage. And by this time, we had started the foundation, not really with the focus, but just knowing that we wanted to help solve this problem of traumatic brain injuries and post-traumatic stress, specifically in the veteran community. And Dr. Gordon saw an article on the internet, I believe, and contacted us through email, set it up, said, hey, we've been helping veterans for a long time. I think this might be something that you're interested in. Take a look at it. Oh, and by the way, I'm not a kook. So let me know what you want to do.
He's a bit of a nut.
And, yeah, he's eccentric. He's eccentric, no doubt about it. But so I ended up getting out to California, had the treatment, and within hours of what we call a provocative testosterone injection, I was feeling remarkably better, and I equate it to like having a lead apron vest that you wear at the X-ray machine. Yeah. Like that was taken off of me for the first time, and I could start to breathe. And
was it just testosterone that you were given, or was it?
It was just to see how I reacted to the specific blend that he had, and I reacted very well.
Was this an injection, Andrew?
Yep, injection. Mm-hmm.
So just within minutes, you just started feeling
within 3 hours.
Okay,
I was driving south on the 405. If anybody's familiar with the LA area, that's a pretty high anxiety level drive. But at this time, I didn't have control of my faculties, and I noticed that I was driving. I was in traffic. Music was on. I was just chilled, and I was like, "Oh, holy shit, man! Like either this is a placebo, or my body's deficient in this." And either one, I don't care because I haven't felt like this in over a year. And like I said, that wasn't even, dialed in surgical, what I needed. It was just see how I responded. So things only got better from there. But that's kind of the genesis of me and Dr. Gordon.
Well, just backtracking a little bit, were these symptoms something where it kicked in overnight, where all of a sudden you're depressed and despondent and you don't know what to do, you're just in this frazzled state? Or was it a gradual buildup?
It was a gradual buildup, Mike, and the first thing that happened to me, and after talking to a lot of people, it's very similar, is my libido just, boom, gone, nothing. And I was 31 at the time, and so I just got back from a physically and emotionally taxing deployment, and I just figured, hey, man, we've been pushing for a long time, and my body hasn't had the time to heal, so it's just taking time to get back on track. And that's all I thought of it. But when you have a wife, she doesn't see it that way. So that's what made things difficult, because she thought, okay, well, either you have somebody else or you just,
right.
You know what I mean? So that's where that was difficult. But, so the libido led into the just crazy fatigue and, difficulty functioning, and then to all out short-term memory loss, migraine headaches, double vision, balance issues, and then all the behavioral cascades with coming into depression, and then anxiety, panic attacks, crying for no reason, and again, something's wrong with me, but I don't know what's wrong with me. I want to get help, but all I'm getting is medication and psychotherapy. So, that was how that started to play out.
On previous deployments, did you find that you also had a loss in libido, but then that came back after a certain period of time?
Never was an issue, Mike, before.
I'm just curious if there were any. Yeah, I'm just curious if there were any similar symptoms that you recovered from quickly, so that made you think that, hey, maybe it's just going to take a little bit longer this time around.
Yeah, my thinking was, you try to rationalize why it's happening. I was like, I don't know. The only thing that's different is, this was really intense, this last deployment, and I missed a child's birth or whatever, and then you come home and you're forced right back into the regular world and Western society, and it just wasn't working. So I don't know.
Right.
To me, I was like, okay, well, one less thing to worry about. But
now on the last deployment. Yeah, exactly. And the last deployment, did you have a particular event where you did suffer some head trauma?
I definitely had. I was knocked unconscious once, briefly, but my job specifically had to do with explosives. And so I was in my entire career in and around countless explosions. And we now know that the blast wave that propagated from that is very damning when you're up in close proximity to it. And it's like everybody's different. And so how many licks does it take to get to the center of a Tootsie Roll Pop? I don't know if it happened to me after 9 years. It was the burn had enough.
Yeah, because when we talked to Dr. Mark, and he said that you could have similar issues just from, let's say, high school football, just a head hit there, or you could go snowboarding and you have a bad fall and you hit your head on the ice, and then these symptoms manifest later, and you just don't draw the correlation or the connection.
That's exactly right, and that's part of the problem is with the current medical system. They don't do their due diligence in getting the complete data in a person's history or timeline. So when somebody starts having these behavioral manifestations and these physical ones, but they can't necessarily pinpoint it to something in their recent history, then they're like, oh, we don't know.
One of the big problems also is the fact that the medical community is very divisive on the benefits of testosterone. A lot of people say there's no benefit to testosterone. Others say it's dangerous. Others say it's dangerous to do TRT for any reason. So there's not a lot of cohesiveness in the medical community as it is. Only now are we starting to get out of that dark ages where people are understanding how important testosterone is to men for overall health and vitality.
Like, pigeonhole it to a certain age group. So, someone in Andrew's case, if he's coming in at 31 and he's thinking like, okay, maybe I need to get my, hormones checked out and testosterone. They're like, well, why would you want to do that? I've experienced that so many times. I say, okay, I want to get my hormones tested. I want to get my testosterone tested. Well, why? I'm like, because it's very vital to my health. Yeah, but you're young. You don't have to worry about that right now. Okay, what I want to worry.
Well, that's a good assessment on whether you should stay.
Well, and that's the reason why I'm not with that doctor.
If I go to a doctor and I want to have some tests done, I don't have to explain why I want to have those tests done. Just run the fucking tests, and then we'll talk about
plus
the
results. Plus, there's more money in your pocket, buddy. I'm helping you out.
Yeah. That's my data. Let me have my data and hands off. You know what I mean?
Right.
Exactly. Yeah, I've seen that as well, and just horrible stories. And my testosterone, both free and total, were just astronomically low. And I was seeing an endocrinologist through the military, and I had to go through two because both of them looked me in the eyes and said the only physiological explanation of having these levels so low is if you're abusing anabolic steroids. And I was like, you got to be fucking kidding me, man. I was like, do you even know the difference between a barrel and a buttstock? Or I pointed one at another human? And
well, what's sad is they think that's the only reason. That's what's really sad right there.
Exactly. It's like, it's fun to come in here and say all this stuff like that. That's fun for me, and it's all a big game. Come on.
And they should know by the ratios of different levels if that's the case as well. So, not only are they not educated on why levels can be low, they're not even educated on how to assess why the levels are low.
100%. You're 100% accurate, man. So the amount of misinformation and disinformation and the uneducated part of it is is rampant. Even today, we think, okay, well, people are starting to come out of dark ages, but there's a big sector of that still is very much not aware of, these things. These things are produced by the body and very crucial to our well-being and functioning. And if they're deficient or insufficient, you have all these problems with your quality of life.
There's also this issue with the unwillingness to say, I don't know. These doctors feel like they just have to give you an answer. It's like, how hard is it to say, you know what? I don't know. Let me check into that. Let me find out more. Because you can't expect them. It's kind of just like cops not knowing every law out there.
Well, the problem is they think they
Well, that's what I'm saying. Is their unwillingness.
So they're not even thinking. Maybe I don't know. They're like, oh, this is why.
That's what I'm saying.
Without having anything to support why they think that. I mean, on a much lower level, I got into studying hormone optimization because I was suffering from hormone imbalances myself, and I went through, and it wasn't anything as severe as what you went through, head concussion, PTSD symptoms, but I was very frustrated with the doctors I spoke to as well, because no one really knew what the hell they were talking about. Which the only thing good about that is it allowed me to go into deep research and figure out these things on my own, where now I don't need them. I can get lab work done on my own. I can assess what's going on. I can develop protocols and so forth and help others do the same. But you got
to be your own best advocate, just like you said, man. And
exactly.
Out there, like now we don't have to worry about, okay, am I getting bad information? But you just have to know how to sort through information, and make sure it's credible and referenced work. But if it meets those certain criteria, you can be confident that is the deal. And so that's why it was easy for me to also do the same thing and say, okay, well, you guys are telling me just flat out shit that is wrong.
Yeah, that's the problem also, like Sincere said, is in addition to not willing to admit you don't know, they're giving you information that is not substantiated at all. Right. They're just making these flat out statements like, oh, here's what's going on. It's like, okay, based on what?
Mike, where did you go to when you started looking in to find out, what was going on with your hormones?
Well, you started with just general practitioners, which, as Sincere already discussed, is a total waste of time. First, you have to convince them why you should even run the test. And then I went to some anti-aging doctors, and that was a step up. But the problem I had with anti-aging doctors is they would just look at numbers on a piece of paper and then come up with the easiest way to improve those numbers. So if your levels are low, they'll go, okay, let's get you on TRT. And at least they're willing to do that. But in my case, I wanted to understand why it was low, because it didn't really, and it wasn't even super low like what you were talking about. It just wasn't optimal. So to me, TRT didn't make a lot of sense for someone who's 31. Right off the bat. It's like, why don't we look at mineral deficiencies? Why don't we look at adrenal health? Why don't we look at all these other protocols? Your sleep quality? Do you have a lot of stress in your life right now? There was no questionnaire about what's going on in your life, because stress, just cortisol can just cannibalize testosterone dramatically.
Absolutely.
So anyway, these are things I discovered on my own through my own research, and I was able to optimize my levels without having to resort to TRT or any kind of hormone replacement. But it's just there wasn't a willingness to take the time to really assess each person, was what I gathered. It was more, okay, here are your numbers, and here's the easiest way that I can get you to improve them and get you out the door.
It was one of those if-then type situations, like if he has this, then give him this.
Right.
Come on, man. It's not like choose your own adventure or something like that, man. It's like
Well, it's like if someone has ED, right? It's like, okay, let's give you Viagra and get you out the door, rather than asking, okay, well, what's your diet like? Because if you have a crappy diet, that's going to cause arterial blockages. If you have a lot of stress in your life, that's going to cause ED. There's so many reasons why you could have ED. So it's worth assessing all of those things and improving all of those making all those lifestyle changes, and then going from there. And then something like Viagra, Cialis, et cetera, that should be the final resort when everything else fails, rather than, okay, let's just put you on this and get you out the door. Now, to be fair, a lot of consumers want these quick fix solutions as well. So it's not just the doctor's fault. A lot of consumers are like, well, look, I don't want to cut out bacon and pancakes for breakfast. I don't want to start exercising 3 times a week. I don't want to get more quality sleep. Just give me the pill, doc.
Exactly. Yeah, I don't know how to say to those people. You know what I mean? Like, that doesn't work.
But then there are situations where it's the obvious solution, right? Where someone has had brain trauma, these natural protocols that I'm talking about are going to be completely ineffective. So that's where something such as TRT, I think even DHEA, just replacing a lot of the hormones makes total sense.
Yeah, and then again, that's what Dr. Gwynn looks at is the neurosteroids produced in the brain, which is, hormones. And prior to 1986, we weren't even aware that hormones were produced in the brain at all. So now we know they're synthesized in both the central and the peripheral glands. Right. And so when you're deficient in that, and it's not just testosterone, it's like you said, it's some of the precursors to that, the DHEA, pregnenolone, allopregnenolone, with the HGH and all these other factors, they have to be addressed. And the body is not as simple as just, okay, this person's deficient testosterone, give him testosterone. That doesn't solve the equation. That doesn't fix the problem. And if you haven't gone upstream of looking for deficiencies there, you're really not solving the problem. Right. So if you need to do the complete panel, and it goes back to what you guys are saying is, the quality of your questions can determine the quality of your life. So if you can figure out how to ask the right questions, you can get the right answers. And here's an interesting fact. In America today, I think it's 62 minutes is the average wait time spent in a doctor's office. And the average time actually seeing the doctor is between 6 and 8 minutes.
That's generous. That's very generous. 6 to 8 minutes. I'm like, really? They're being very generous with that. It's like, dude, it's like a drive-by diagnosis. It's just like, hey, how you doing? Cough for me. Let me check the back of your throat. Okay, here you go. Here's a prescription. All right, just go see the nurse on your way out and just pay. Like, really?
And then two of those minutes is with an index finger in your butt. And then
possibly a lifesaver.
Exactly.
Well, that's why I think it behooves people to take charge of a large part of their health on their own. And I'm not saying that you should
scrap doctors altogether.
treat. Yeah, I'm not saying that you shouldn't have a doctor at all, but you should be as educated as much as possible on your own health.
Yeah, you have to take into effect all the environmental factors and external, factors, light, noise, diet, sleep, air quality, water quality, all that has to be accounted for. If you really want to perform and feel phenomenal, those all have to be in the right balance.
Right. Now, when Dr. Gordon was on last time, we did talk about the importance of optimizing the entire sex hormone profile, so pregnenolone, DHEA, androstenedione, testosterone, et cetera. So I think the mistake a lot of anti-aging doctors, or some at least, or people in general, is they're overemphasizing testosterone and not looking at the entire picture. Because, if you increase testosterone and DHEA is still low, you're not going to feel as good. If you increase DHEA and testosterone by pregnenolone, which is a very important neural steroid or neural hormone, that you're still not going to get the full benefits. It's when you create that orchestra between all of the sex hormones, that's when you feel like $1 million.
Yeah, it's exactly right. It's a symphony, or think of it as a stereo, and the pituitary gland is the equalizer and the balancer, and it all has to be in the right balance. So if any of that is thrown off, the whole thing is out of whack. And so that's very much the case, Mike.
Yeah. Now, Dr. Mark Gordon has also used Clomid quite a bit. And Clomid is a fertility drug, but it also helps rejuvenate natural levels of testosterone. A lot of bodybuilders use it after steroid cycles to get natural levels back up. Have you found that that's an effective option for some of the soldiers you work with?
Yeah, so we've treated now over 100 veterans and service members since January of last year, and a lot of them are on the Clomid protocols, and we're seeing phenomenal results. We're just coming to the end of Dr. Gordon Millennium Health Center is a 3-year study. We'll put the results out later, but it has been phenomenal where that's able to stimulate the production of testosterone, and some people have taken them off in the Clomid and it's stuck. So it's turned their system back on effectively.
Yeah, so that's another important distinction is when to use which protocol. And that's where someone like Dr. Mark Gordon is so good at. And I know he's educating other doctors now. He's doing courses for other physicians who want to get into this line of work.
Yeah, absolutely. We trained, he trained 42 last year, and we have a training in his 2020 to have 500 doctors trained by Dr. Gordon in these protocols, where then we now have them spread out across the states where we can implement and send our guys and girls to these various doctors that we have vetted and ready to go in every state.
What kind of pushback have you gotten from other doctors? Are there doctors you come across who are just very skeptical as these being effective methods?
They are, and they are come out looking foolish every time, because everything is 100% backed up by the scientific literature. And then you have the clinical application. So like I said, 12 to 1,300 civilian TBI cases Dr. Gordon's treated, and then now we've done over 100 veterans, and they all have, these incredible results. I mean, guys on 15, 17 different medications, multiple suicide attempts, now off all medications, back to living lives, having jobs, being in the family, and this, that, and the other. So, the evidence is there, but there's always pushback when anything is new or different from the status quo, and doesn't matter what it is. And then you want to talk about something like dealing with the word steroids. It's just grossly misunderstood, and all anybody knows is, there's a baseball scandal and that's cheating and this, that, and the other. No concept of what they're talking about. So that's what you're fighting. You're fighting against, just the unknown.
And we start talking about fighting. Now we know as far as the news has been the last few years, man, just with the VA is a hot mess. And you have a lot of these soldiers coming back right now, man, and they're dealing with, traumatic brain disorder and PTSD, and they're not really, a lot of them are not getting, we were talking about, waiting 67 minutes, just for a doctor. This is for just civilians. We're not even talking about what soldiers are going through, waiting for treatment and doctors at the VA, which is probably 2 or 3 times as much. I'm probably being very generous with that. Like, what has been the biggest issue as far as dealing with them, as far as this protocol, and them, any roadblocks from the VA trying to stop this protocol, and, just trying to implement their input on this, but at the same time, not trying to create a solution for it or anything like that? What has that been like, man, with the VA?
Well, through Dr. Gordon, we've been able to get in contact with the Secretary of the Veterans Administration. So, I mean, they're hearing the information, but right now there's been no movement on it. And what we now realize is you can't necessarily affect the VA directly. You have to affect them indirectly. Okay, well, how do you do that? You do that by getting to the budget makers and the policy makers and showing that you have a viable solution that is better than the current solution, and more importantly to them, less expensive. Well, it just so happens that we have all that. And so that's the route we're taking. But we're getting an independent review board together to analyze the results that we're finding, and in hopes of having that published in the scientific literature in the next year, and then being able to take that validation to Capitol Hill to back up, the clinical application that we're seeing with the results as well.
Now, I'm curious, are there any women that have come to you for help as well?
Yeah, we absolutely. So what they call is MST, military sexual trauma. A lot of females have run into that, and that's led to other physical traumas as well as some combat injuries. So it's not just a one side of this aisle for males. It's both sides.
A military sexual trauma, that's just assault?
Assault, rape, like that. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Yeah, I didn't even. Yeah. I would imagine that's a multifaceted approach then when working with such people. Is it counseling and then hormone optimization, hormonal profiles?
Yeah, we don't personally offer through the foundation any psychotherapy or counseling like that. Okay. It's just in addition to what they're already doing, But again, if you're having these behavioral issues, if you're having these problems with reliving something in the past, but there's also physical trauma in your timeline, we're finding more times than not that's coming from a traumatic brain injury and not post-traumatic stress. The symptoms that we're finding from post-traumatic stress or a result of the traumatic brain injury. And again, that's a result of being deficient or insufficient in these ever important neurosteroids, hormones produced in the brain. So fix the deficiency, replenish to the correct physiological levels, quality of life improves 100 out of 100 times. And, we're not here selling any false hope or false evidence. Again, it's all backed up in the literature. And again, now through over 100 cases that we have through the foundation.
Yeah. I mean, that movie Concussion goes over how a lot of the NFL players experience very similar side effects from brain concussions that you guys go through, and how people were very reluctant to accept any truth on that, obviously for financial purposes, but also just to draw the connection. People were very reluctant to draw the connection at all.
Well, it's a scary thing when you think about it for the first time. You're having these problems, and then somebody says, you have brain damage or you have brain trauma. You think, my God, I have what? There's no way. From what? Just hitting my head? That couldn't happen. But we know that it can. But the beautiful thing about it is, Mike and Sincere, is there's an answer. There's a solution, again, and it's by correcting a deficiency the right way, the insufficiency the right way, we can get your life back on track. And so my hope is we can also, educate the NFL on this as well, and bring this to those athletes as well. But I mean, it's not just a veteran issue. It's not just an athletic injury, an issue. This is anybody can sustain a traumatic brain injury. And right. Like you said earlier, it can be months, years after the initial trauma when these symptoms start. And that's the difficult part. And so that knowing is half the battle on that. So being able to draw that and have somebody asking you good questions to figure out, hey, was there trauma in this person's timelines? And if so, what and when and how can we hone in and affect that? And it's as simple as an objective blood test.
Now, in addition to the blood test, do you also do brain scans? Is that part of the assessment?
No, we don't need to do brain scans, because by looking at the chemistry and seeing what's out of alignment, we can then tell by the certain deficiencies, okay, this has happened because traumatic brain. Okay, well, how do you know that? Well, we know if the luteinizing hormone is in overdrive, it's because the pituitary gland, there's a problem there and it can't effectively send out the testosterone. So you look for these deficiencies and spikes in one area and things that are low in another area, or some telltale signs. And again, Dr. Borden is the expert on that, but that I got the benefit of listening to him talk.
No, that's a good simple way to determine whether TRT is the right approach. Your LH is really high, but your testosterone is still low. That's often a sign that, because if LH is low, then that's odd. Then you can go, okay, let's improve LH and we'll get our testosterone back up. But if LH is high, sometimes it's like towards the very end of high, and then testosterone is extremely low, that's an obvious disconnect, whereas the signal is not getting there, as you said, and you're not going to optimize it naturally, right?
That's exactly right. So that's how you can pinpoint that deficiency, looking at those levels. So luteinizing hormone is a big one, and there's some other ones as well. And again, he's the expert on it, but that's one definite way that you can figure that out.
I think the big problem is the misunderstanding with PTSD, because most people, especially speaking about civilians, they just assume that all of these symptoms are from experiences that occurred overseas, just really stressful experiences. Yeah. Rather than, so you could have gone out there and, let's say, not had any really stressful experiences, but you had a head trauma and you're going to come back with some really bad symptoms.
I was just going to bring it up because there's this big disconnect also from civilians. I always hear about it. I support the troops and that's great, but things like this the way that this has been approached, this whole outlook of PTSD and TBIs, civilians should be as outraged as soldiers are. Because, I mean, when you hear about the rates of suicide, that are attributed to this, to to PTSD and TBI, that should outrage, folks, especially folks who say they support the troops, because if you truly support them, then you should be out there screaming and shouting and, supporting organizations like yours, as well as going to their congressmen and telling them, like, dude, we got to do something to help these guys coming back and these ladies, because they're going over there. They're putting such a big sacrifice for our freedoms over here. Why are we not trying to give something back to them? And why are we not pissed off about this? Why are they getting tossed to the side? And I really think there's like a big disconnect when it comes to this. And there's so much that many don't know as far as civilians. And that those that do know, just like you said, Mike, it's just like, well, that's because they saw some action over there. They kind of knew what they were getting into. And it's just a part of the game, when you're a soldier, not knowing that. And it doesn't affect me.
Well, a lot of people sadly don't care.
Fight, but it does affect you as a civilian because, again, this is something that's, they're protecting us. And on top of that, we do pay for it. You still paying for it one way or the other. So it's just like, so my thing is, they've invested in us. Why are we not doing the same? On a larger scale. Like, what is the roadblock with all that, man?
Well, I think it's upon people that take charge of this, though, right? A lot of people think, oh, the government should be doing this. Well, if every American citizen donated $1 to Warrior Angels, that would pretty much solve this problem in terms of having the resources to give every soldier what he or she needs. to get full recovery. So when people say they support the troops, what the fuck are you doing?
I got a ribbon on the back of my car.
Because I hear people say that all the time. It's easy to say, but what are you actually doing? How do you quantify that? Are you helping out? Are you hiring a soldier in your company? Are you donating money to an organization? Are you sending clothing and supplies overseas? I mean, what exactly are you doing? And the average person, let's be honest, isn't doing jack shit.
Yeah. And, we're beyond the point of, just offering up awareness. What we need is viable solutions. And how I rate a charity or nonprofit is what kind of value are they creating? What are they actually doing? Are they just giving out vacations, or are they actually doing something?
Right.
And judge us by the value of what our participants are saying. And it's giving somebody their life back. And so you can be confident if you are interested in supporting that we will use the funds to give somebody their life back. We are founded and run by combat veterans. And so we very much understand the sacrifice and the duty that we have to put into this to right the wrong. And like you said, Mike, it's assuming somebody else is going to do it. You can't have that mindset, because you'll end up failing more times than not. So our mindset was, if you don't like it, fix it. Don't complain about it. Find a way to make it better, or else it's called bitching. And I hate bitching. So coming up with solutions. And with post-traumatic stress, it is a big misconception. And by definition, that's purely a psychological issue. And so if somebody, again, has had any kind of physical trauma, we have to look at that first. And the problem with the system is when they diagnose somebody with post-traumatic stress, it's okay, you're going to go on packet of drugs number A. And then 3 months later, when you're still depressed, we'll put you on packet of drugs number B. I was clinically diagnosed with post-traumatic stress, and it was hard for me to swallow, because I was like, hey, I've been doing this for a long time. Matter of fact, this is my purpose, or I thought it was my purpose, to lead men into battle, to kill evil, to free the oppressed. And now you're just telling me all of a sudden I've seen too much combat and my brain can't take it. That never sat well with me, and that's when I went and started looking at the sex hormones and endocrine system myself, Mike, and started finding out some of these correlations. And when you treat the body as it's a physical injury, now I have no problems with things I used to get hung up on emotionally. And again, it was because I couldn't process things right in my frontal lobe and my neocortex, because of the inflammation and the oxidative stress and free radicals there just made a mess where nothing was getting done. But you clear that up, guess what? Now I can operate as good, if not better, than I was before. I can think clearly. I can recognize that, okay, this situation deems this type of action, so I can give the appropriate response. Whereas before, somebody gets just blown into rage over something that didn't warrant that kind of reaction. And so, but again, there are answers and there's help for all these things, and we're showing it time and time again.
Yeah, I think it's deducting way too much when someone looks at special forces operators and says, oh, you just saw one too many things over there. That's why you're experiencing these things, because you guys are so mentally tough. That would be very low on the list of assessment tools that I use.
Yeah, talk about the ultimate disrespect and slap in the face. This is, many guys came into SF, Special Forces, after 9/11, so there was no preconceived notions or misconception about what was at stake. You know what I mean? You knew what you were getting into. Nobody really knows combat or war until they effectively are in it, but you understand what you're getting yourself into to some degree. And so to do that over and over again, and then to find out that that is something that you can do well, and you can operate effectively in that environment, and then one day somebody just says, well, it's like you've had too many missions, and you used to close the file on it, but now you've had so many files in your file cabinet that we can't close the door, and it just spills out at times.
Right.
And I was like, you got to be fucking kidding me, man. That's not the case. And I'm so glad that we were able to figure out, what was going on. So many people out there are suffering, and they're confined to a life sentence where they think that they're going to have to live in solitude and just deal with this until their breath runs out. And again, it's not the case.
I'm impressed.
No, I was just
go
saying,
ahead,
you're
Sid.
saying like so many folks are out there that are, dealing with this. How do you guys reach out to them and show that, hey, our organization is here? Because there's so many organizations out there. There's so many different like options. And some of them are viable options, and some of them we've come to find out, especially some very large scale organizations, are not exactly doing the things they said they were doing on the level that they're saying that they're doing it. So how do you guys, how do you remain transparent at the same time also being in a situation where you're easy to find for folks who are dealing with these situations, for soldiers who are coming back?
Yeah, great question, Sincere. I mean, first off, there's over 40,000 military and veteran support organizations. So there is just, input overload on what to do. But then again, you have to judge it by the value they're creating. And so, that's the difference with what we're doing. We reach people through several different means, one through being blessed with opportunities like this that you've afforded us to talk on podcasts, radio shows, TV, things of this nature, our online social media presence, our website, www.waftbi.org. And then, the reason that we were able to get a foothold and remain transparent is our credibility inside the community, inside the special operations community. My brother, the co-founder, was also an Apache pilot, so his credibility. So again, we're founded and run by combat veterans specifically to help combat veterans with traumatic brain injury and post-traumatic stress. So we will lose clout the instant we do something self-serving or that's not in the best interest of the population that we're treating. And I would hope that would be the case, that would be exposed immediately. But I'll tell you, I'll die before that happens. So we believe in doing the right thing, not for a promise of reward or for fear of failure, just because it's the right thing to do. And you remain transparent by saying exactly what it is you intend to do, how you intend to do it, and then by making things like your financials transparent and things like that. That's common for all nonprofits. But again, it's doing and saying. It's doing what you're going to say and saying what you're going to do. You know what I mean? And walking the walk and talking the talk. And that's what's helped us with a lot of our population. Being confident and knowing what they're going to get from us.
Good.
Well, I think that's one thing that's great about you guys is you founded this organization and you suffered from these things that you're helping other people with. So this whole organization came out of your personal journey. I'm curious, when you were going through the lowest state, you were severely depressed, despondent. How did you have the energy to even look for solutions to get yourself out of this deep hole?
It probably goes back to who I was before it happened.
Right.
And being resilient. And, here's the thing, Mike, like I was able to, resiliency is ability to bounce back from perceived difficult situations stronger.
Right.
And, I understood the science of positive thinking and the science behind winning and things like that. It was very important to me, learning that early on in my Special Forces career. So, I had this positive self-talk, this positive inner dialogue, this positive self-discipline and self-belief. That never left me. But when the new things entered, I wanted to find out why. And then getting all the information I was getting, being told essentially, hey, this is the new you. Make sure you have a GPS with you everywhere you go because you're going to get lost. Make sure you always have a pad and a paper on you because you're not going to remember. And, you have to do things in these successive orders. I just refused to accept that. And so I think it was the drive that it was important to me to leave the right legacy behind, for my children. And I think, just because times are tough doesn't mean we put our head in the sand and we say, okay, well, game's over. I didn't think that way. I've never thought that way. So despite having all the physical and the behavioral issues, it was that self-drive to fix myself, knowing that having the self-confidence to say I can figure this out and we're going to get on the other side of it. And I don't care what I have to do. I don't care how much money I have to spend. I don't care if we go in debt. I don't care if I lose my friends, anything. As long as I can keep my family together and do things and still be a man of integrity and a man of character, then I'm going to go after it until I figure out the answer. And then when my dad gave me some good advice. He's like, son, I know that you're hurting and I can't relate to anything that you've been through. But if you can find a way to make this about somebody else, if you can find a way to put value into somebody else, that will help you. That will be able to put value into you. And that's exactly the case, Mike and Sincere. If you make it about somebody else and make it, how can I work through this, and also make it about getting somebody else out of the same situation, not only does that help that other person, not only does that help grow them and sharpen their perspectives, it does the same thing with you. And, that's what it's all about, figuring out what that is for you. What is that meaning? What is that purpose for you? You have to find it. But I found that when you wrap that up in helping somebody else, you can always figure out, your why. And if you have a big enough why, you can always figure out.
That right there is the magic cure for bitching right there. People always have the self-pity and feeling bad about themselves and playing the victim role. That's how you cure that in one fell swoop right there. Just make it bigger than you. So if somebody else, trust me, no matter how much your day sucks, somebody else's life and everything else is sucking far times more worse than yours is. So now that you can acknowledge that, what are you going to do to help them? Make them feel better. And I can't think of anyone that felt bad about helping someone. As far as somebody that needed it, not a moocher, not a leech or someone like that who had no intentions of doing anything that they could have done for themselves, but someone who truly was in need. When someone actually helps someone that's truly in need, no one ever walked away. It's like, that sucked. I doubt it, man.
Right. Yeah, it's fulfilling. It's absolutely fulfilling. And you wrap that up in your purpose, and that's what you have. And, a friend of mine gave me some good advice, when I was telling him about some of these things. And he's like, hey, man, these problems aren't specific to you. I know you think you are. And he's telling me his personal story. He's like, hey, I thought these problems were specific to me, but they're not. Has anybody ever been in the same situation that you're in and succeeded anyways? And if the answer is yes, and the answer is always yes, then so can you. And that's got to be your mindset.
Yeah, it's just like Ryan Holiday was on our show, the author of Obstacle is the Way, and it's the winner mentality of looking at obstacles as opportunities. And looking back on any success I had, it always started off as an obstacle, which I didn't see as an opportunity at the time in terms of what it led to later. But like you just wanted to blast through it, and then all of a sudden but it opened up a lot of opportunities when you made it bigger than yourself. You say, I can fix these problems for me, and I bet there's plenty of other people that are dealing with similar things. So when I share this story, it's going to help them, and who knows where that road's going to take you.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I was a fan of that book, and what I liked about that was making it about somebody else and realizing these challenges, when you start to look at them through a different lens, and you start to instead of saying, man, I want to get out of this situation, embrace those feelings, embrace those emotions, be able to step out of yourself and take stock of what's going on. You start to have a different appreciation of things, and you start to say, okay, instead of running from these perceived difficult areas, I'm going to see how I can turn this into a focus and harness this to overcome and use this to, like we talked about, contribute and to help somebody else, and again, I think we try to run away from perceived negative emotions or feelings or stuff like that. And I think we can learn a lot from them if we just take the time to kind of be mindful about that situation and why it is. That's the only way
you're going to grow, man. You got to go through, you got to take on that resistance. I mean, it goes all the way down to even just training. You sit there and if you just sit there and, you're in maintenance mode all the time and you're just working that same little PR that you've had for the last 2 years, then you're not growing, dude, and nothing's happening there. So you got to push and challenge for those muscles to grow. And so the same thing has to go with that mental muscle and just, that muscle, just having the fortitude and the heart to push forward. You got to go through those challenges. No one ever sits there and shares war stories of all the easy times. Nobody talks about that. Like, oh, I remember when this came easy. I remember my mom just bought me all this. Nobody wants to hear that. People want to hear the real stories, man, the challenges, so they can feel inspired, or realize, you know what? I went through the same thing. I'm glad it wasn't just me. Those are the stories that really get people going, man.
I think the problem with some people is that now they just have the wrong intentions. So it's fake generosity or false generosity, where they try to come off like it's all about helping other people, but it's all about screwing other people over under the pretext of help to help themselves. So we see that quite a bit in the fitness industry, for example. We could go down a lot of examples here. So I think, but generally over time, those people are exposed because UFC Matt Brown was on our show one time, and he said something that really stuck with me, and he said it in the context of fighting, but it can be related to really anything. Is the truth always comes out? So if you say you're all about helping people, well, whether that's true or not is going to come out eventually. If it's about helping others, that truth will sustain itself. If it's not, that's going to come out. But just to add on to my point, there was a funny episode of, I think it's The Real Husbands of Hollywood, something like that, right? It's like this parody of all those reality shows, right? And there's an episode with Kevin Hart where he's making fun of himself in the show, but in one scene he's talking about how he wants to help kids and all this other stuff, and then when the camera's off, he's talking to someone in his backyard. He's like, "Look, man, I don't give a fuck about no kids, right?" And I think a lot of people are. I shouldn't say a lot of people, but I would say some people are like that, where they like to come off with fake generosity. In other words, when the cameras are on, they'll hug the kid and hug the puppies and all that, and then when they're in their privacy, yeah, exactly. Like, get that dog the fuck out of here.
I mean, what people are talking about.
Hey, I don't want to turn away any of those people. So the fake generous people, they can still be fake and generous to the War Angels Foundation. It's all good.
No, that's true. Yeah, exactly. If they're going to make a donation, they're going to make a donation.
As long as that's real money, not counterfeit money that they donate, everything else can be fake.
Yeah, no, but like it's a status symbol for a lot of people. So absolutely.
Right. If someone's making $100,000 donation for the wrong reason, it's still going to be used for the right reasons.
You'll make sure that it's for the right reasons, okay? You can help cleanse that.
Yeah.
So what's the biggest thing you guys need to really proliferate this thing to get it out there? Is it fundraising? Is it awareness? Both?
We've set up the logistical and the administrative system. We now have the body of work that supports what the scientific literature is saying. And it's resources now. Yeah, we need resources to be able to effectively take this and treat it effectively. And then how do you do that? Well, you do it just like we're doing. We're training doctors in this specific protocol. Dr. Borden is very particular about who he allows to even come to the conferences that he puts on, and even more particular about what they have to do to show themselves to be worthy after graduating from his course. And so you set up those doctors around the country where you can now affect things at scale. And so when we do that, we can take 10,000 people and we can spread them out and we can treat them, in the course of 3 months. So, that's one side of it. The other side is this needs to be something that is offered and administered by the Department of Defense and the Veterans Administration. So we're working to effectively bring that change about. And our goal as of right now is by January 1st of 2020 to have this implemented within those two systems and effectively work ourselves out of a job. So it's not set up for just to suck resources. It's not set up to just raise awareness. We're set up to solve a very specific problem with a better, more cost efficient solution, and then get back to, go find something else to do. But the biggest help we need is people pushing this information out to the people who need to hear it, to the family members, and then to people who want to get involved. We have a plethora of ways that you can get involved on our website.
Yeah, that's an important point you brought up, that you want to be out of a job, because a lot of nonprofits that are not so generous, they don't want to be out of a job, because as long as the problem exists, they're making their $500,000 a year salary.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, it goes to me that's good. It's kind of a special forces mission. We always wanted to go in there and work with the indigenous forces, train them up to a certain level where they can now take over and implement their own security forces in their own country, wherever that be, and then effectively work ourselves out of that job and not have to influence over there anymore. So we're taking that same mentality to the world of nonprofit, and instead of just existing to exist and to suck up resources and not to really do anything, we're doing the exact opposite. We have a very specific mission, a very specific goals. We will get it implemented. We will change this, and then we will not ask, to anybody to give resources to that anymore. There's other things we can focus on that we're getting interested in as well, and that's the homeless situation in America and the incarceration of so many people, unnecessarily. And what we found is the correlation between behavioral health and head trauma is, the correlation is now there. So we know a lot of these people that are homeless, that are incarcerated, are there through actions that they did not want to commit. It was because of a deficiency in the brain that they didn't have a choice otherwise to act. So we think this has potentially huge positive consequences across the board for the entire world. And it's not about just veterans or TBIs. It's about stopping suffering that doesn't have to be, and it doesn't have to be. And that's again, I know I said it a few times, but it's what the evidence is supporting, and there's no false hope. We're offering solutions backed up, by science and the data of our population.
Yeah, you're putting a spotlight on an issue that a lot of people could be dealing with who are not involved with the specific experiences you guys have been through, right? Combat experiences where someone could have just been in a bad car accident and had a serious whiplash, a head trauma, and now they're just not the same and they don't understand why.
Absolutely. There's over 1 million traumatic brain injury cases in America a year, and that's just something that warranted going to the emergency room. So I don't know how we can quantify the people who didn't think to make the correlation to go and check those things out. So it is a very big problem. I think there's 5.3 million people that are completely disabled by the traumatic brain injury they have. So it is a bigger issue. It can affect and happen to anyone. So that's why it's so important, and it's good to get on forums like this, like you guys have provided us, where people can get this information. And we don't just have to be a veteran for it to be relevant.
I think it's really interesting that you're taking this information, and then the next step could be looking at why are people homeless and what percentage of that population is from head traumas. And then looking at why are people in prison and what percentage of that population is from head traumas.
It's fascinating. We have got in contact, a couple of groups have got in contact with us, homeless groups, and one specifically here in Texas, the main one in Texas, they ran a survey through their homeless population in Austin, Texas, and they did this for a couple of years, and the data that came back was over 50% of the people they surveyed had multiple head injuries. And so they had all the different types of injuries they have. So we have all the scientific data from this one survey. So just in the Austin, Texas homeless population alone, we found 50% of those people are affected by head trauma. So what they hypothesize is the same results that we're seeing with the veteran community can be replicated now in the homeless community. So we're working on getting a research project ready to go to look at how we can affect that homeless situation there. But could you imagine the ramifications if we can prove that correlation?
Yeah. Well, that's incredible.
And treat it.
Because most people draw the complete wrong or erroneous conclusions there. I mean, I've brought it up before on the show, but I was talking to a lady at the dog park in my neighborhood, and she was talking about, all these homeless losers. Why can't they just get a job? Why can't they go stay with family? And I was like, man, you are so disconnected from reality. It's not even funny. Not everybody has fucking family they can go stay with in hard times, And not everyone has. Some people, I mean, a lot of people are just barely making it each month. Where if just a few things go wrong, they're out on the street.
Yeah, some of these folks have.
That's the reality for a lot of people.
Some of them have jobs and they're homeless. Some of them have, but they're not making enough.
Absolutely.
To have quality housing or housing that they can afford, or they have families. And here's the deal: you have to make this choice. Like, okay, do we go to this homeless shelter, or do we go stay in this low income housing where the crime rate is just exponentially, just through the roof, and you put your family in danger? So sometimes, these people who are the head of the household got to make these choices. And so you got to make, it's either or. It's like, okay, we can go to the shelter where it's a little bit safer than going to this low income housing where you don't know what's going to happen. Someone could kick your door in or whatever else, and all for what? Just because you can just bear. I mean, this is what you're stuck with. So you got to make those choices. So it's very, it's so much of like a privilege type situation for someone even to make a comment like that. It's like, God, Absolutely. It's like, really, lady? Are you serious right now? Where have you been?
Well, it's just, yeah, exactly. It's just you're just so disconnected from reality. But no one thinks of what you're bringing up, Andrew, of head trauma. No one's thinking. I mean, that's not the first thing that comes probably to really anyone's mind when they see a homeless person.
They may think like, oh, here's,
there
may be a vet coming back and, fell on hard times, because you see a lot of that. And they just leave it at that. They don't dig deeper. And they're wondering like, okay, what kind of hard times?
Yeah.
Were the hard times here?
Yeah. What was fascinating was that they came back and they said, hey, we've watched your guys' research and your results, and this is what we found through our survey, and would you be interested in helping with this? We hypothesize that we can replicate your results in this homeless population. So fascinating. And, I'm so thankful to have gone through all these experiences, because it's opened my eyes, because I never would have made that comment about a homeless person, but I never would have thought, hey, are they there through no fault of their own, or not by their own decision? You know what I mean? They don't have the mental faculties now to go and get employment, to go and be able to give the right reactions to certain situations. Can they not remember? Is their short-term memory just completely flawed? So,
well, I mean, the mistake a lot of people make also is they think, they just need to deal with it mentally, and they don't realize that hormones have way more effect on how we think and feel than how we think and feel affects our hormones. So some people will say, just start meditating, you'll optimize your testosterone. No, it's not that fucking simple, right? Optimize your testosterone and you'll improve your meditation skills. Not necessarily the other way around. And I'm not downplaying the importance of meditation. I'm just saying that if your testosterone levels are next to zero, just meditating and going to support groups is not going to bring it up to an optimal level.
That are happening, whatever. It's really hard to sit there for 5 minutes and try to erase your mind. In fact, being in that silence is when those things are going to really, really be exaggerated in your head. And they were like, I don't want to go.
No, but if you optimize your testosterone, your DH, if you optimize all of those things, it's going to affect everything else dramatically.
Yes.
But not the other way around is really the point, the conclusion I'm trying to
I'm a prime example, because, again, I was trying to, being that positive person, having that positive self-belief and self-talk, to one day then I'm having trouble being able to do that. I'm still having the positive self-talk, but now half the time it's negative talk. And I'm like, well, why is that happening? Stop that. And, okay, well, you need to try meditating. Man, I can't even think straight and meditate. You know what I mean? So you're exactly right, Mike. If you don't fix your biochemistry, if the biochemistry is not correct, all these other supplemental things are not going to work. Conversely, correct the deficiencies, you have your biochemistry where it needs to be, then all these secondary treatment and benefits like meditation can now reach their full potential, just like you said. And I've seen that firsthand, through my own experiences.
Yeah, I mean, if a homeless person is feeling the way you did at your lowest point, of course they're not going to be able to hold down a job.
Yeah.
Of course they're not going to be able to have stability in their life.
I mean,
absolutely. And so that's we're excited. We think we can make a difference in these arenas as well.
What are some of the success stories that you guys have experienced, man, through your organization?
I thanks for asking that, Sincere. I'm not I consider myself a hard man, but I get emotional thinking about it and talking about it, and it's because I understand the stakes and I understand the damning effects that the silent wounds of war has on the family, on the marriages, on the children. But the results that we're seeing, again, time and time again, is people coming off a multitude of medications, people who had more than one attempt at suicide, now living a purposeful life, having a job that they're passionate about, making their vocation their vacation, and being able to be in life again and be around their children, have their wives want to be around them, listening to somebody significant other saying, my husband's back, you brought me my husband back. And, now I can function, I can have a job. So these are the things, again, time and time again, we don't have one case where somebody was deficient or insufficient in neurosteroids and had them correctly replaced, where their quality of life did not improve. And I'm talking about dramatic improvements. Do not have one case.
Yeah, that doesn't surprise me one bit, because hormone replacement will affect those things positively. So if someone has those issues, everyone who goes through the protocol is going to experience dramatic benefits.
Yeah, and a lot of our guys have a problem with, like we were talking about, anxiety and depression and rage and stuff like that. And so when you can correct those deficiencies, those go away. And again, those are some of the success stories. And so it just, again, time and time again, amazing success stories like that.
Yeah, if you have no testosterone, DHEA, pregnenolone, I don't care what book you read or you tell yourself, you're going to feel like crap. You're not going to feel good at all. Zilch. If you improve those things, you don't have to force yourself to feel good. It just comes naturally. When you're like, especially when you get the ratios right between testosterone and DHEA, pregnenolone, et cetera, in the context of libido, I mean, it's there. It's not something you have to think about. It's there. It's gonna be pronounced all the time. It's not something where you're thinking, okay, what can I do to get my sex drive up? It's up, whether you like it or not.
Waking up with the heart on is a good day, my friends. I'm feeling good today.
It's a sign it's going to be a good day.
Exactly.
Right? You're starting off right.
Just starting off right.
It's a clear sign that this could be a good day for you. It could be very productive.
Yeah, you just you're right. You just feel good. You just feel better. That's how the body was intended to be. It's what the process of natural selection through evolution has brought us. So that's where it needs to be.
Well, so many people don't feel good at all, though, right? They don't feel as bad as you did your lowest point, or some of the people you work with, but they don't feel close to optimal. I mean, the average person out there, we walked up to the first 100 people, they're not feeling good. I can fucking look at people and tell whether they're feeling good or not. It's obvious to me. So just look at how people store body fat is related to their hormonal profile. So people can lie all they want, but if they're truly honest with themselves, very few people are like, yeah, I feel fucking great. I'm feeling optimal. But that's something they should strive for. So the information you're putting together here, it's really not just relegated to soldiers or people with PTSD or serious traumas. Really, everyone should take this stuff seriously.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's about being at your optimal peak levels, and they're attainable. But it's like anything else. You have to earn it. You have to earn it, and you have to earn it every day. And it's a conscious decision. And it's either, hey, is my health important enough to me to align these things up so that I can live to my full potential, so I can be the husband, I can be the wife I need to be, I can be the father I need to be, I can be the leader I need to be. If that's important to you, then it's important enough to make the effort to do the right things, and what you eat has a direct effect on your life. It's huge. Sure. So if you're feeling yourself full of processed garbage, you're going to feel like garbage.
Well, I always say, if you could give someone a pill where they feel hormonally optimal for an hour and then it wears off, right? They would do whatever it takes to get back to how they felt in that hour.
Just give me another one.
No, a lot of people just don't know what they're missing. They just think, well, this is
how
normal.
it is.
Everyone I know is fat and out of shape and can't touch their toes. So I guess this is just part of aging. Just going to have a couple more beers and kick back. But that's someone who maybe they were never optimal, or maybe they were at one point and they've just completely forgotten, or they don't think it's attainable to get anywhere close to that. It could be one of many things, or just an addition of many things. But if you could feel what it's like to be optimal for a little while, you would do what it takes to get back to it.
100% agreed, Mike. And being on the wrong side of health and then being healthy again, it's the same scenario. You couldn't pay me enough to put anything that I think is going to damage brain health or weaken my performance or cause me to have a hangover or these other things. I mean, why would I want to feel that way? I don't. And so it's not even a difficult decision, So that's one of the beauties of perspective and being on that wrong side of health and then getting healthy and saying, wow, I'm never going back to being in that scenario.
Well, when you think of all those self-destructive behaviors, those are people desperately trying to feel good. So you go to the bar, you have a couple drinks, you're trying to feel good. How you feel doing that, though, is nothing compared to how it feels to be hormonally optimal. So someone who it's easy to avoid those habits when you feel good all the time. It's not a temptation anymore, because it's not going to make how you feel better. It's going to make it worse.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it goes back to that trying to run from those emotions, or using something else, maybe substance abuse or alcohol, to drain out those emotions instead of taking the time to actually discover what that emotion means and use that to better yourself. And if it's something that you don't like, figure out how you can implement something to change it.
Yeah. So, I mean, I just can't emphasize enough how important it is to optimize your hormonal profile, because it'll just improve every facet of your life. Yeah. I mean, you'll go from someone who's just coasting to, man, what can I do now? I have the courage to pursue what I always wanted to do. You know, I just can't imagine living where you're just drifting through life. You're just doing a job. You're going through the day. You're just watching a lot of TV at night. You're not excited about anything, and you're just drifting along. And so many people fall into that category.
Yeah, absolutely. And, talking again about success stories and what we're talking about, we've had people that had severe head trauma and actual physical damages to the brain, and then optimize their hormones again, and they're functioning at amazing levels, so much so that the medical community that sees them can't comprehend how this person is now able to function like they are with this type of physical damage. But yet here we see them out living a life, being able to walk and talk and live, play with their kids, have a job. And so going from a vegetable to that by optimizing hormones, unbelievable. So how much more so if you're not even that far off? I mean, you're not even that bad off. You're just you're having some issues. Get that corrected. How much more optimal are you going to be? The
Right.
answer is unbelievable.
Right. I mean, that medical community, the thing they should be shocked about the most is the fact that they're not abreast to all this research and utilizing it. That's what they should. I would be ashamed. I'd be like, why don't I know about this? Why don't I know about this where I can utilize it with my people, myself, et cetera? What is the assessment process when someone comes to you? Do they start off with a questionnaire and then they do lab work? How does the whole process go?
Yeah. So if anybody wants treatment, they come to our website. They go to our sign up for treatment page and they fill out a new patient intake form. And that gives us their basic data. That's going to send them a follow-on email with some HIPAA compliant forms and a detailed health questionnaire that Dr. Gordon has generated. So they fill out that detailed health questionnaire. They get it back to us. We vet the incoming health questionnaires and intake forms to make sure they are a veteran and they do think that they've had some type of head trauma, or they say they're having post-traumatic stress issues. They don't have to verify that because a lot of people had those injuries and they didn't get verified or even accounted for while they're in because they didn't want to talk about it. So we just want people to say, hey, if you think you have a problem, come to us. So if you meet those prerequisites, then we'll fund you. And what happens then is we use the lab in Florida called Access Medical Labs. They'll mail the veteran their kit. Say they're in Las Vegas where you're at, Mike. So they'll mail the lab kit to you in Las Vegas. We'll make coordinations with the lab that's closest to your geographical location. So you'll take your blood kit to the lab. The lab will draw your blood. Then the lab will send that back to Access Medical Labs in Florida. They'll run their diagnostic panels, get the data. They'll send that to Dr. Gordon, who's in California. You'll receive the results. He writes a detailed patient report, and he gives you an email and booklet form via FedEx. So once you receive that information, we'll make coordinations for you to meet Dr. Gordon through Skype consultation. So he'll do a Skype consultation. He goes over through everything in excruciating detail. You guys are both to agreement about what your protocol should be. And then that will end that conversation. We'll receive the invoice at that time. We'll fund it, and the protocols will go out that day or the next day. So we found a way essentially to bring world-class care to veterans and service members wherever they are at without having to physically go to the doctor's office. And then we reassess every 90 to 120 days with follow-up labs, and Dr. Gordon will make tweaks on their protocols as we get the data back from their labs.
So Dr. Gordon's able to prescribe medications or in this case, testosterone replacements via distance?
Yeah, it's through something called telehealth. So if there's a couple of things that if he has to prescribe, he has to go through a physician in your state.
Right.
So we'll make coordinations to get that physician in contact with Dr. Gordon so he can bring them online and then have that physician in the state
write the prescription for like Clomid or testosterone, are the only two, if I'm remembering correctly. But that hasn't been an issue. We've worked hard to pull out all the obstacles and all the kinks to make this as seamless as possible and as user friendly as possible. When you think about the guys and girls that we're getting, it needs to be because they're having a difficult time focusing and things like that. So again, we tried to think outside the box. How can we remove, need a central location? How can we remove the doctor from the office from the equation? And how can we streamline the process to get world-class care instead of the bureaucratic mess that other places are dishing out?
Right. What about growth hormone? Is that utilized?
Dr. Borden has a product, I believe, that boosts that naturally called
secretropin. Yeah, sure.
Yeah. So we had a lot of success with people in the program on that as well.
Well, hey, man, this has been fantastic. Where can people find out more information about what you do?
Yeah, absolutely. We're on the web at www.waftbi.org. That's waftbi.org. Got links to all our social media. Starting to have YouTube videos come out. So we're always just trying to put out content of value about brain health and updates about what we're doing. And if you want to sign up for treatment, or you know somebody that wants to sign up for treatment, you can find that through our page. If you're interested in helping or getting involved, like Mike and Sincere have, you can do that from our website again. And Mike and Sincere, thank you guys from the bottom of my heart. Mike has been an incredible advocate for us for day one, Sincere as well. And it's just I can't say enough about the character that you guys have to do something like that and to allow us this time slot to talk to your audience. It's just been an absolute honor and a pleasure.
Oh man, the honor's ours.
Yeah, man. Great. Yeah, man. Thanks for your service, country. It's just a funny joke that I thought of with Dr. Gordon when he was on our show. When first time he came on, he was talking about TRT, and he's like, "I don't like women using TRT because it makes their clits big, and guys don't like that." and then Sincere's like, "Well, let's not generalize, Dr. Gordon. Some guys might be into that."
No wide set vaginas.
Yeah. It's like the first time we had him on, it was he was like, "Who are these two guys?" Because he had no clue what he was getting himself into. The second time he realized what the kind of show we do, where it's just more conversational. It's lighthearted at times, it's comical at times. So the second time he just had a blast because he knew what he was getting into.
Yeah.
Oh man. Cool.
Well, great, man. It's a pleasure. Keep up the work you do, and just let us know if there's anything we can do to help out.
Yep. Absolutely. Thank you guys both. You guys have a great rest of your day.
Take care, bro.
Soon.
Thank you, Andrew. You take care, buddy. Bye.
Yeah.
And again, that's Andrew Marr. Check out warriorangels.com, and he's on Twitter as well. If you have some questions you want to hit him up with, or you want to contact him via the organization, just go to warriorangels.com. And Dr. Mark Gordon is also, I'm not sure if he's available for just regular folks as well. I think he's so busy with this organization. But if you're hearing these stories and you're thinking, man, those sound like symptoms I have, what can I do? You can contact him via these websites, and they'll find someone that he's trained locally and get you in touch with that person.
Yep. Good, man.
And more importantly, everyone who's listening to this should make a donation at warriorangels.com. Frankly, you should be ashamed of yourself. If you listen to this episode and you don't do jack shit, shame on you.
I mean, the link is right there in the show notes every week. And right now as we speak, I'm sending out a tweet right now, asking you guys to join me in supporting this organization as well. So can't run from it, man. Come on. Like I said, this is not something that just affects soldiers who are coming back. This affects all of us in some way, in some form, some shape. It's not, there's no disconnect here. It's all affecting all of us in some.
And everyone listening can make a $5 donation. If you can't, then you shouldn't be listening. You should be out there getting another job. You shouldn't be wasting time on the internet dicking around or listening to the shows. You should be out there scouring the world for financial opportunities.
Definitely, man. All right.
And if you don't want to make a donation, tell you what, do this. Use that coupon code. Use that coupon code LLA. Go get 10% off. Support our respective businesses, and we'll keep making donations. So
we'll do it on your behalf. Okay, if you don't want to do it directly, we'll be the middleman. Because that's definitely what we do. It's not like we just take all our, all of our support and when people buy our products and it's like, oh, just put it in our pockets and we're going on by our day. We give out to a lot of different charities out there and a lot of organizations that we truly believe in that, we really want to support them. So whether you want to or not doing it directly, you're doing it. So there it is.
And if you have your own podcast, you have your own show, you should get someone like Andrew on. Get Andrew on.
He's
the show.
a far better guest than a lot of these dumbasses that, so many people that they circulate on their podcast over and over who are really never really adding any real value to things that really matter in life, just kind of posturing and, all this other crap, like trying to tell you how to dress and pretty much, what's the best haircut and what's the best bow tie to wear. Like, come on, man. There's far more important things going on there. And plus, if you need a podcast to tell you how to dress, you got a problem. Because first of all, it's a podcast and you're listening. You're not even looking at them for most of the time. And if you are watching,
if you're a grown man and you're listening to a podcast on how to dress, that's a problem right there.
They have a solution for that. If you're a man and needs someone to teach you how to dress, they have a solution. It's called your mother. Okay, I'm pretty sure she tried to do that in probably the first 18 years of your life, but if you still need to keep going and find like these shows to show you how to dress or whatever else, like, come on, man.
Well, we gotta do a show on all the mistakes people make when they do podcasts, right? Because I don't consider like us super experts in how to do this. We've been doing it for a couple of years, but there's a lot of things we do right, and I see a lot of things people do wrong. One big thing is when someone invites me to be on their show and they go, okay, these are the 6 questions I'll be asking you on the show. And the 6 questions are obviously extremely generic, where obviously this person asks every guest who comes on the show. Yeah. It's like, I'm a big fan of your work. It's like, no, you're not. If you were a big fan of my work, you would have specific questions for me, not these 6 generic questions you ask every motherfucker who comes on your stupid ass show. So, I mean, just then what's funny, another thing that's funny is like, oh, I'm a big fan, love to have you come on the show. Let's do a pre-call to make
what
sure.
What the hell is that?
It's like, well, if I'm a big fan, if you're a big fan of my work, why do we need to do a pre-call? Why do I have to sell myself to you on coming on your stupid show? People
are buying into these formulas that, they're being sold as this is a winning formula to have a successful podcast. No, that may have worked for that person selling that formula, and that's how their podcast probably worked out. Doesn't mean it's going to work out for you because you don't necessarily have their audience or their charisma, or even you're not even that person. So,
well, most people don't even want to do a podcast. It's like Ryan Holiday when he came on the show. He's like, a lot of people do podcasts because they're thinking, oh, podcasts? Is that what people are doing now?
It's a good marketing tool. And that's what a lot of times it's being sold as that. It's like, hey, if you have a business, one of the things you want to do, because, the whole scope of marketing is changing now, and you can't, Google ads and all that's not working. You need to have a podcast. That's what you need to do, and that's how you help your business. That's what's going to help the marketing of your business. Yeah, that's true, but if that's what you're specifically doing it for, it's not going to work. It's going to suck.
Yeah, it should be a side effect rather than the main focus, right? When I look for guests to come on the show, I look for people that I think we would want to talk to. I was like, man, this guy sounds interesting, or this girl sounds interesting. Let's get them on the show. That's what I think. I don't think, oh, this person will move the ticker. It's boring as fuck, but we'll get a lot of downloads. A lot of times when people make some of these recommendations, they're going, oh, you should get this person on the show. It's like, no, I'm not going to get that person on the show because I could care less about talking to that person. If I don't care about talking to the person,
it's not going to work.
It's not going to be a good. It's not going to be a good episode.
We can't hide it. You would know. You would know, like, okay, those guys are definitely. Oh no, you don't have to worry about us not getting to it because that episode would have ended very quickly. Like, wow, that was the fastest episode ever. Like, it was only like 15 minutes.
That episode won't even air. That's a great thing about not doing a live show. If the episode sucks, we don't have to air it. It's not like there's an obligation to air it. It's not like there's an obligation for us to air the show just because we recorded it. If the episode sucks, we can just trash that episode. Oh man, so let's definitely do an episode down the road where it's just us talking about effective strategies for doing a podcast. Should you even do a podcast? And then a lot of the things we see people doing wrong with various shows out there. I think the best shows are just to put a exclamation point on this conversation about it is interesting conversation. That's what people want via a podcast, not someone asking generic questions. And then they ask you the questions and then they don't have anything to say about what you just said, right? They just move on to the next question.
Right.
That's boring as shit, man. Just do a conversation. It should be an interesting conversation. Someone listening should feel like they're in the room with you.
And see, that's the thing it's always hilarious to me when I see some of these comments, especially like when I send the episodes on YouTube and someone has obviously never really followed the show like on iTunes or Stitch or something like that. They came across it on YouTube because it's probably suggested to them while they were looking up something else. And then they're listening for the first time. And it's like, oh man, I just wish these guys, would just kind of, one person at a time and let this guy talk or this and talking. It's like, first of all, we're not in the same studio. So if we're all in the same studio, then yeah, but when you're in 3 different locations most of the time, then you got to kind of work on the chemistry and the timing and the rhythm and all that. And sometimes it's not going to work that way. And also, it's not, like Mike always says, this is not Charlie Rose. This is not Larry King. We're not going to sit here and like, well, blah, 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 blah. And how did you feel about that? It's a conversation. Okay. It's a podcast. Look, man, if you want to watch a news program, an investigative news program, then there's a plethora of them on television, or go listen to,
right.
What is NPR? I mean, good.
I mean, or if you just want to hear the guest, go watch one of their lectures. Go buy one of their products.
You're already on YouTube, just look at check out one of their lectures. Yeah, like you said, go buy one of their products.
I feel like, you should. It would be better if they just let this person talk. It's like, well, why do we need to be there then? If they're just going to talk, we can say, hey man, just talk about this, and we'll push record. See you in an hour. It's not a podcast. We just let the other person talk.
I mean, it is a conversation, man.
And you really think that's what they want to do? I don't want to go on someone's show and give a lecture. I expect them to engage.
I need you to be in the conversation, man. I just don't come in with your prepackaged 6 questions and question number 1, sincere, and blah 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 blah. And then you just sit back because you're waiting for question number 2. You're not even paying attention because the thing is,
oh, good stuff.
Sincere,
good stuff.
I really like that.
It's like, what did I say, motherfucker?
I really like that. I was listening to someone's podcast this past week, and I was listening to Tim Larkin on someone's podcast. I won't even mention the podcast, but I'm just telling you that I have to wonder, were they really paying attention to Tim? Because there were so many things that Tim is such a wealth of knowledge, man. How can you not be engaged in the conversation? I mean, he's got so many stories and experiences, but I can clearly tell that this person was more focused on them being the one that seemed like the expert or want to just hear themselves talk, and also just that's cool too, Tim. Yeah, that's really cool. But what I'm thinking is this. Like, dude, this is not your profession. Why are you offering your opinion? On everything that Tim brings up. Like, dude, come on, man. So it was to the point it was getting very hard for me to even listen to the episode. But I was really listening for Tim. But I was like, God, I just really wish this guy would go away. Because obviously he's really not that interested, or he's really trying to prove how much he knows about this topic, or trying to just posture up on like, well, I never thought about that. Well, obviously, that's why you bring him on the show, man.
Never thought at all. That's the problem here.
So yeah, man, it got a little bit annoying at that point. So I was like, wow, man. And I was just kind of wondering like how Tim is such a professional, because you'll never hear it in his voice, but I'm just probably thinking like Tim's probably like, just shut up, dumbass, and let me finish talking. And of course, yeah, you've never thought about that because you've never done this before. That's the reason why we're having this conversation in the first place. So it's interesting sometimes. So that's another aspect of podcasting that's funny to me. Don't create a podcast just so you can be the expert of all things with everyone you bring on, with all the experts you bring on. You don't have to be the jack of all trades. We know certain people that's specifically why they created a podcast. And basically every episode, they are the know-it-alls. They know everything about that topic and what that guest is bringing to the table. Because, let them tell it. They've done it all. They've done all those things. But they don't. They just seem like idiots.
Yeah, a better approach is when someone says something in one context, and then you basically make some points about what they said and bring it to another context so people have a greater understanding of it. So Andrew, for example, talking about how hormone optimization affects soldiers. Well, that affects everyone. So you bring it to a level where other people who are not soldiers can say, hey, this is important for me as well. So I should be looking into this.
Exactly, man. So yeah, obviously we do need to have an episode about, the podcasting 101, the do's and don'ts, from a non-marketing off a podcast course standpoint. So like,
it really comes down to a few points, right? It's like, one, is this something you actually want to do? Like you're looking like this sounds like a fun thing to do rather than you're just doing it for business. And then 2, do you actually have people you're interested in talking to? Is there a long list, like people you want to talk to, not people that you think are going to move the ticker, or just you're reading a lot of books or you're watching a lot of clips and you're coming across interesting guests.
Exactly.
It really comes down to is this something you actually want to do for the sake of doing it? Imagine if you didn't make a dime off of it. Would you still want to do it?
Yeah, that's why there are so many shows on iTunes that are like 5 episodes.
Yeah, exactly. They realize, well, the truth came out, like Matt Brown said, right? They came out. I mean, if you start a show and 6 months later, it's over. Guess what? You didn't really want to do it. You know, and now you know, and now everyone else knows too.
And take those episodes down, man. It's frustrating. It's pissing me off. You know, I found a topic that I'm interested in. I see your podcast pops up, but there hasn't been an episode since 2013. I'm like, come on, dude, delete these. This is dumb. Okay, take it down. So anyway,
they're like, well, maybe people will. I'm going to wait for those episodes to get a lot of downloads. Then I'll start doing the show.
They pick back up, then I'll start again. Like, good luck with that. It's 2016, man. That's 3 years ago. I don't think they're going to pick it back up. They're going to bring back Revolution to come back on television again before they somebody picks up wants your podcast to come back. So just stop it, man.
Yeah. Speaking of Revolution, the main guy in Revolution, the guy who played that dictator. I forget his character's name in Revolution, but he's on a new show.
Yeah, I saw that. I saw him in a commercial.
Really, really good, man. Yeah, it's clearly based on that movie Sleepers with Brad Pitt back in the day, Robert De Niro. But they're going in their own direction. It obviously has clear points from that movie, but there's enough differences that it's original. But it's really good. So that's a show definitely worth checking out.
I saw him. I was like getting excited. But I was like, but this is another show.
Yeah, he's good at it though. Well, hey man, let's end with this real quick. Some UFC predictions because we've got the John Jones fight coming up. Just the three main ones. We got Pettis, Barboza. Let's see, we've got Mighty Mouse and Cejudo, and then Jones versus St. Preux. With Pettis versus Barboza, I would like to see Pettis win, but I think Barboza's going to win. Yeah, because I think Barboza's the underdog, so that's another reason. I'm going to put a little bit of cash on that. And then with Cejudo versus Johnson, it's hard to bet against Johnson, but for some reason I feel like Cejudo is a tough. Yeah, and he's a 3-1 underdog, which I feel is ridiculous. It shouldn't be that big of a spread. Cejudo's an Olympic level wrestler. He's undefeated. It doesn't mean that I don't think he's going to go in there and just pull off this crazy upset. But
I see a lot of where they're even in so many different ways. Other than just the octagon experience and those championship round experience. I think that's where Mighty Mouse has the advantage. But everything else, a lot of those things are pretty much as Mike Goldberg say, virtually identical, which he overuses that phrase a lot. So yeah, man. And so, yeah, I don't know, man. It's like, I want to go with Mighty Mouse, just like I said, for the experience and just him being the champ. And, it just seems like he gets better and better with every fight. I mean, out of all these champs out there, people still don't have him in the conversation. But out of all those champs, when he had his belt and everybody had the belt in their, respective weight classes at the time, he's the lone man standing. Everyone else is pretty much.
I think the criticism is just the caliber of opponents he's had is not the same as, let's say, the caliber of opponents that John Jones has had, or the caliber of opponents. I'm trying to think of another dominant champion.
I mean, but you look at his weight class. It's kind of like for the longest what Ronda had to deal with for the longest. It's just like it's not his fault. It's just like what's being fed him from his weight class, and
that's right. He just happens to be in a weight class which is fairly new, so there's not a lot of people in it. Right, it's not a well-established weight class such as 205 or heavyweight or middleweight.
There's not a lot of grown-ass men walking around 125 pounds.
Yeah, well, that's the
that actually want to fight.
I mean, come on, man. That's less than what most women weigh, right?
And pretty much the only time you're really going to find a lot of grown-ass men that actually fight at that weight class, they're in boxing. Okay, so.
Yeah, no kidding. That's.
Like, wow, 125 pounds, dude. I mean, like, wow, you're a grown man and you walk around at that weight. Yeah, you're a badass. I give you that, but you just don't really see that very much. So it's not like
those are kind of like the UFC fighters you think you might have a chance because if you can just pick them up, and throw them as far as possible, you might, as a bigger guy, you might have a chance. It's like, look, you're a little badass, but if I can somehow avoid a hit and pick you up, I might.
From the little guy point of view, it's like I can whip anyone's ass as long as I don't let him grab me. As far as that's always been the attitude when dealing with a big dude. So.
Yeah, they're fast though, so the probability of you grabbing them and throwing them is pretty low. But if somehow you can,
just do a Debo on Craig, just like go from the movie Friday, like go to sleep.
Yeah, I'm gonna take all of my body weight and slam it into you on the mat as hard as possible. That's the plan here.
Okay? I'm bringing back the bear hug. Okay.
And then John Jones versus OSP, it's easy to think that Jones is just going to blow right through this guy. But, there's some interesting points here. John hasn't fought in a while. And ring rust is always a factor. OSP is not some lackey of an opponent. It's not like they pick some guy who's not even ranked. He's in the tops. I think he's number 6.
I mean,
and
the people that he's lost to is like, come on, man. Glover.
Yeah, Glover,
exactly.
Teixeira.
So, you gotta. It's not like he's lost to some Rudy poops. Okay, that's the thing.
I mean, I think Jones is going to win. I don't have any doubt about that. But it wouldn't be the biggest surprise in the world if there were an upset there, especially given how
in the
many
past
upsets
year.
there's
It's just like,
been.
whoa,
I'm curious to see what John looks like because now he's clean and sober. Now he's been powerlifting. He's really dedicated to his training and all of that. It'd be funny if for some odd reason that works against him. It'd be funny if he was a better fighter, when he was dysfunctional. And that sounds stupid as shit, but like stranger things have happened. So it's kind of like rock stars when they get clean and sober and all of a sudden their music sucks. It could be like,
hey, man.
man, these guys are way better with their. It's like all that creativity John has with his combinations and so forth. Maybe that came from a place of self-destructive behavior.
Just
who the hell
can
knows?
do anything. Like, it was the cocaine talking, man. Cocaine's a hell of a drug.
Yeah, exactly. So it's going to be really interesting to see what John looks like here. I mean, most likely he's going to be a way better fighter. He's just going to blow through him. But who the hell knows? You never know until you see it, man. It's easy to sit around and make these predictions, but you never know until you see it. I'll tell you one thing. I felt bad for Rashad.
Man. It's just like,
man, that was rough.
It was just hard to watch, but it's just like, you got to start asking those questions, man, at this point, especially being 36 years old now, about a little over a decade into this. And, at this point now, are you you pretty much become a journeyman. Like, what are the real odds of you getting back in the title hunt after, these kind of defeats,
Yeah, I thought Glover would win, but I didn't
man.
think he would win that quickly and in the first round. I thought it might drag out. I thought it might be a dominant decision, or maybe in the third round as a finish, but not in the first 2 minutes of the first round.
Not just with that, just like, wow, but that precision of that left, man, right on that chin, and then boom, that follow up right to the front of the skull. It's just like, wow, man, it was just kind of hard to watch. It kind of reminded me when Rashad, knocked out Chuck. It was just that same feeling like, ooh, I don't know, man. I think this might be it.
Here's one of Chuck's training partners, or former training partners, who trained under the same camp that Chuck trained under.
And now it's coming full circle. Like, wow. That's amazing.
That Khabib Nurmagomedov, that was awesome. I mean, obviously he fought a last minute replacement, and obviously everyone expected him to win.
That guy.
Man, absolutely, man. Well, frankly, he did a lot better than I thought he would do. He hung in there quite a bit in the first round, had some success too. But once Nurmagomedov found his rhythm, his wrestling is just savage.
There's another guy that had a little bit, trying to shake off the
rust
rust a little bit. It's been 2 years now. Almost.
It was a good fight for him to have actually coming back instead of Tony is a stud, man, who was originally. I mean, I still thought Khabib would win that fight, but I don't think it would have been easy because that Tony is a badass.
And man, Rose and Tisha, man, that was pretty good. So now they're like 1-1.
Yeah, some people said that they expected more action. I thought there was quite a bit.
There was a lot of action. Trust me, especially.
I don't know what fight you guys saw, but that looked pretty action-packed to me.
When you're a little bit more evenly matched, and so every time you give something, they give you something right back. It kind of makes them. You kind of think a little bit. So I don't like what you want them to do. Just go out there and just wail on each other, or whatever else, which they pretty much did every time that clicker went off for those last 10 seconds. They went at it, man. So I don't know, man. I thought it was a very good fight. And it does, definitely put Rose in the conversation for, being next up, out of the winner between, Joanna and Claudia,
Yeah, but like with Khabib, a lot of people don't realize who he is because he had a 2-year layoff. But if you have Fight Pass, or I'm sure you can find it on the web if you look. Go back and watch the fight with Rafael dos Anjos.
He's a legitimate
before he was
threat.
The champion.
Okay.
The guy who's the champion right now, the guy who destroyed Pettis. Okay, watch that fight and watch the way Khabib just manhandled him for 3 rounds. It's amazing. His wrestling is the best in the UFC by far. It's just he's just so good with just oppressing people with that wrestling.
So it's gonna be interesting. It'll be very interesting to see how things turn out this weekend.
Also, he's just an interesting guy in general. He's got an Arab name.
But he's Russian.
He's a strict Muslim. He's Russian, but he's a strict Muslim with an Arab name. And sometimes it sounds like he has an Arab accent. You know, it's like there's a little bit of an Arab accent within the Russian accent.
You know, it's funny because that my wife and her family, they're Arab or whatever. It's just so funny because the first time she saw him, she's like, Russian? He's not Russian. He's one of my people. As I said, the person born in Jersey without a Jersey accent. No, okay. Oh man.
Oh man, so that's anyway, that's gonna be exciting. So let us know what your predictions are. Hit us up on Twitter. Let us know what your predictions are, and we'll see what happens there. We're not going to give you anything if you're right. Just let us know. You're not going to get anything out of it. We're just curious. Just a way to interact with us a little bit. How about that? That's what you get out of it. All right, folks, use that coupon code LLA. Go get 10% off everything at MikeMahler.com. And how about you, man?
Head over to newwarriortraining.com. Use the same coupon code, 10% off. Also, head over to Patreon. Become a monthly supporter of the show, patreon.com/LLA podcast. And last but not least, share the episode, rate us, review us on Twitter, iTunes, Stitcher. Oh, did I say Twitter? Maybe because I'm looking at that right now because I just sent that tweet. No, iTunes, Stitcher, TuneIn, SoundCloud, YouTube, all that. All right, folks. That's how you can do it.
Yeah, make a donation to Warrior Angels and let us know you did it. All right,
folks,
take care, everyone.